Camacho, Earthquake, Lunel, Dion Cole, Martin Lawrence, and a surprise guest appearance. It's going up Thursday, February 26th in downtown LA at the Grammy Museum. An unforgettable afternoon of stories, celebration, and yes, plenty of laughs. Because let's be real, these legends don't just tell jokes. They have changed the game, opened doors, and made history while making us smile.
You gotta go to child support court. You gotta get there real early in the morning. You see brothers going into court. You see them come out 3 hours later. I can't pay this. Let me talk to you, baby. Please, let me talk to the witness, Your Honor. Let me talk to the witness. Brother be working for 3 weeks, get his check is $43.
This year, for the first time ever, we have set aside a limited number of individual tickets for the luncheon. They are going to go fast, and when they're gone, they're gone. So if you want a single ticket, or if your company or organization wants to sponsor a table, move swiftly and get to KBLA1580.com right now. All these comedy giants in one room on one stage at the same time? Stop it! This event is going to sell out quicker than right now and sooner than at once. KBLA Talk 1580's annual Black History Month luncheon, Thursday, February 26th at the Grammy Museum. It's gonna be legendary, just like them.
What's up? What's up? What's up?
You got to laugh the pain away.
Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. Oh, 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 the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. Oh, 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 the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. Oh, 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 the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. Oh, oh, come on and talk with me. Come on and listen to me. Come on and talk with me. Come on and listen to me. KBLA, Talk 1580, download the app.
Through AI. So yeah.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome aboard to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. We'll be late Talk 1580. It's at me with Gina Towns. Gina is our creator and producer of the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show, president and CEO of 519 Productions, and the executive producer, creative director, and program director of the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on Smiley Audio Media's KBLA Talk 1580. She is also the host of Reflectivity on my weekly series, Fat Meat Fridays. She's a graduate of Hampton University with a Bachelor of Arts in Mass Communication and Arts. Gina has also earned her Master's of Arts in Theology and Social Justice from Princeton Theological Seminary. She co-produced the Emmy Award-nominated and documentary Hampton University, One of the Wonders of the World, and as a songwriter, co-producer, and performer, her single, Yes, hit number 26 with a bullet on the Billboard. Gina, welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show, Fat Meat Fridays, and the J Lunch Club. Thank God it is Friday.
Fat Meat Friday.
It's almost as if we talked just last week. It feels like a continuation.
Yeah.
The weeks are moving very, very quickly.
Yeah. Well, time is moving swiftly. I don't know if January has ever gone this fast.
It's really,
We have
really
one more
something.
week.
It's also a slog when one considers all of the politics that's taking place. Gina, your thoughts on the roundup of our week here on the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show?
Well, going all the way back to last week, really, I have had a great time, maybe more so than I have in a while, because you know what they say, you don't know what you got till it's gone. And our show has decidedly taken on a lot of Martin Luther King. We spent more than his birthday or even the national holiday recognition of his birthday. I mean, decidedly every day. I asked you and our guests to focus on Martin Luther King, and you have done a tremendous job with bringing our attention to Beyond Vietnam, a speech that he wrote a year to the day of his assassination, and your breakdown of it, the discussions that you've had with people who are very cognizant of the social justice space, but in particular, there have been some conversations, and you and Johnny Mack, who study Dr. King each and every week. Certainly, we have a need for that right now, and that is the part of our history that we must turn to and lean on.
You know, when I give it some reflection in this first segment of our show, 1967 must have been a pivotal year in the life of Martin Luther King Jr. I was born in 1965, and so at age 2 and a few months, I can only help but think that with what I've heard, with what I've read, with what I've come to understand, that the April 4th, 1967 speech, Beyond Vietnam, A Time to Break the Silence, and the fact that he wrote the book, Where Do We Go From Here? Chaos or Community, serves as important data points in going forward for those of us who are in the King and the Kingian, if you will, tradition. Where do we go from here? Chaos or community? The question before us today is whether or not we are closer to community or we are closer to absolute global chaos. I was watching the leadership at the Davos Economic Summit this past week, and it is increasingly clear that they are accepting the idea that the old order has passed, that a new order is in front of us, that traditional alliances that have held true, at least since the end of World War II, are no longer the same alliances. Europe obviously feels vulnerable. Greenland is less secure today than it was before Donald Trump became president again. Russia is emboldened in Ukraine, and Vladimir Zelensky is treated as a stepchild. The president of the United States kidnapped the president of Venezuela. Jared Kushner, the president of the United States, began something yesterday called a peace board. We'll talk about more of that when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. More when we come forward on KBLA.
It's afternoon drive time with Jesse Jackson Jr. Only on KBLA Talk 1580.
Hey, KBLA delegation, you know what's better than laughing? Laughing while celebrating the legends who made us laugh in the first place. KBLA Talk 1580 is proud to present our annual Black History Month luncheon. And this year, we're honoring comedy greats, trailblazers who broke barriers, and funny bones at the same time.
You had to grow up early when we was growing up because your parents were sent to the store to buy. You was too young to buy. I want you to go to the store, get me a fifth of gin and a pack of cigarettes. Mama, I'm 2. They ain't gonna let me have that. Here, take this note. You be a little boy walking down the street with liquor and cigarettes, and your neighbors be going, that's a good little boy right there.
We need a little levity right about now. So we're rolling out the red carpet for comedy royalty. D.L. Hughley, Melanie Camacho, Earthquake, Lunel, Dion Cole, Martin Lawrence, and a surprise guest appearance. It's going up Thursday, February 26th in downtown LA at the Grammy Museum. An unforgettable afternoon of stories, celebration, and yes, plenty of laughs. Because let's be real, these legends don't just tell jokes. They have changed the game, opened doors, and made history while making us smile.
You got to go to child support court. You got to get there real early in the morning. You see brothers going in the court. You see them come out 3 hours later. I can't pay this. Let me talk to you, baby. Please, let me talk to the witness, Sean. Let me talk to the witness. Brother be working for 3 weeks, get his check is $43.
This year, for the first time ever, we have set aside a limited number of individual tickets for the luncheon. They are going to go fast, and when they're gone, they're gone. So if you want a single ticket, or if your company or organization wants to sponsor a table, move swiftly and get to KBLA1580.com right now. All these comedy giants in one room on one stage at the same time? Stop it! This event is going to sell out quicker than right now and sooner than at once. KBLA Talk 1580's annual Black History Month luncheon, Thursday, February 26th at the Grammy Museum. It's gonna be legendary, just like them.
What's up? What's up? What's up?
You got to laugh the pain away.
Are you drowning in IRS tax debt? Angela was. She called Civic Tax Relief and saved over $80,000. Felicia was having health problems, got behind on her taxes, interest and penalties were adding up. She called Civic Tax Relief and saved over $15,000. Civic Tax Relief is a professional tax negotiation firm that can protect you from the IRS. If you're getting collection letters, call Civic Tax Relief for a free consultation. They will go to work helping you discover all the relief programs you may qualify for free. James owed the IRS $37,000. Civic Tax Relief represented him against the IRS, and by the time everything was completed, he did not owe the IRS anything. If you are in trouble with the IRS, call Civic Tax Relief for your free consultation now. 800-200-2257. 800-200-2257. Get a free consultation and real tax relief. Call 800-200-2257. 800-200-2257.
Now back to more of Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
The Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. 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 King Volley drops the beat. Come on and talk with me. Come on and listen to me. Come on and talk with me. Come on and listen to me. KBLA Talk 1580. Download the app.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. It's Fat Meat Fridays with our creator, Gina Towns, and our very special guest in this hour is Dr. Nee Quarterly-Quartey. Not only does he continue his work as an author and KBLA White House correspondent, but also returns to GSEP as professor, shaping the next generation of transformational leaders. His work bridges the worlds of media, public service, and education, living proof of what it means to lead with both head and heart. A proud graduate of De La Salle High School in the San Francisco Bay Area, he went on to earn his bachelor's degree in political science from the University of Southern California, where he also pursued a minor in critical approaches to leadership. And after several years of experience as a public affairs professional, Dr. Q felt called to deepen his impact through education, choosing Pepperdine University Graduate School of Education and Psychology, GSEP, as his academic and leadership home. Dr. Quartey, Dr. Q, Nee Q. Welcome to the
Jesse Jackson. I'm on the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. It's Friday. I couldn't be happier. How you doing, brother?
Man, I love you very much, and there's absolutely nothing you can do about
it. That's right.
Nee, listen, I am particularly concerned about the headlines over the last 2 weeks, and I'd love to get your input and your feedback. Let me just read them briefly. The U.S. pulls out of the World Health Organization. The United States formally completed its withdrawal from WHO on Thursday, after a year after President Donald Trump essentially put the kibosh on it. USA Today, Americans say the United States is out of control, and not just the liberals are saying it. Al Jazeera says the U.S. to withdraw from dozens of UN international organizations. The Wall Street Journal echoes that. Trump pulls out of more than 30 UN bodies. BBC, Trump withdraws from U.S. key climate treaties and dozens of other groups. And of course, the context here is a global climate catastrophe that is taking place at the same time that the administration is withdrawing from international cooperation because, as John F. Kennedy said, we all share the same planet and we are all mortal. Dr. Q, where are we going in the post celebration of Martin Luther King Jr.? His 97th birthday was January 15th. Chaos or community?
Thank you for the question, Jesse Jr. I think there are examples of both. There is examples of chaos and community. You've just laid out the kind of chaos that we're seeing, particularly abroad, but the chaos that we're also seeing right here across the country, the chaos that we're seeing facilitated by ICE, for example. I am still shaken and stirred, having learned about civil rights attorney and activist Nekima Levy Armstrong, not only being arrested at the hands of the U.S. Department of Justice for exercising her First Amendment right, in peacefully protesting in a church where the pastor is alleged to also be doubling as a local director of ICE. To add insult to injury, we saw that the White House just yesterday shared an altered photo of an arrested Nakima Levy Armstrong. What do we call that? We call that propaganda. You got to say it plain. And so we are seeing a lot of seeds of division that are being sown. We're seeing the kind of chaos that is intended to leave us feeling disoriented and feeling powerless and feeling like what it is that this administration hopes to accomplish, that every plank that's a part of Project 2025, that all of that is inevitable. That's what they want us to feel. But I think, to your point, I think community is a part of the antidote to this. We cannot make it to the other side of this chaos by ourselves. And so I've been heartened to see so many activists from across the country lock arms and declare that what's happened to folks like Nakima Levy Armstrong and other peaceful protesters, other legal observers, other American citizens, the trampling of folks' civil rights and civil liberties, not only is it wrong, but you have people taking to the streets saying, "Not on my watch." That is the kind of community that we need to sustain through Election Day in order to bring this country back from the brink.
I saw the altered photo of Sister Armstrong side by side with the dignity that she accepted and did not, if you will, resist arrest as a result of that protest. We also saw some levels of the exact same attempt to disgrace, if you will, to humiliate Don Lemon, I believe in the same particular event. And I'm wondering to think about a Department of Justice that traditionally prided itself in the idea that even those in captivity are innocent until proven guilty. This kind of altering of the even prosecutorial environment, where even a criminal defendant, an alleged criminal defendant, has to even prove in court that, hey, the documents that you're showing or the evidence that you're presenting has been altered to reflect not the truth of my First Amendment rights, but the inherent insults that are associated with the process, that if in fact you are proven innocent, the social media space, with the government's support, participates in a denigration of you and the organization and the movement and the very processes that we have hold dear as Americans. Your thought about that as a professional journalist?
Well, let me just say, speaking of feeling shaken and stirred, I think a lot of us who pride ourselves in developing the first draft of history in the form of journalism, I think we were disturbed by the efforts of this Trump Department of Justice to trample on the right to a free press. And thank goodness that this federal magistrate judge rejected the Justice Department's initial attempt to bring charges against our friend, our brother, journalist Don Lemon for appearing alongside protesters who went into a Minnesota church over the weekend. So we can't live stream protests. That's against the law. That invites the Department of Justice, the U.S. Department of Justice, to file charges. It's hard to not believe that Don Lemon's proudly gay self didn't factor into his targeting. It's hard to believe, that someone who has demonstrated an ability to speak truth to power, right? It's hard to believe that this Justice Department didn't seek to make an example out of Don Lemon, and to send a signal to you, to send a signal to me that telling the truth, speaking the truth to the masses, streaming the truth to the masses will be met with a federal government weaponized by this Trump administration's ultimate aims. You know, it shocks the conscience that there are a number of folks out there that can't see this for what it is. It shocks the conscience that Democrats, Republicans, independents can't lock arms and say this is a bridge too far, right? What else is it going to take? But look, you know, our legal system, it worked in this case, you know, but I fear for the other independent journalists that are out there that don't have the same muscle as legacy corporate media might have. I shudder at what is possible if the algorithms change and suddenly it's harder to get information from these independent journalists, you know, on YouTube, on Instagram, on some of the other major platforms. And the last thing I'll add is, you know, of course, I'm sure you're aware that TikTok is now officially under U.S. ownership. For anybody on TikTok, it's worth looking at the terms of service, looking at the terms of service as a part of what TikTok says that they're offering. I took a look at it yesterday because, you know, I like to geek out on stuff like this. I was looking at the community guidelines in my time off last night. And one of the areas they talk about integrity and authenticity, you know, and they talk about how we require clear labeling when AI or editing is used to realistically depict people or scenes. We don't allow AI generated content that misleads about matters of public importance or that harms individuals. Well, look what the White House just put out yesterday on their social media channels with Nakima Levy-Armstrong, right? And so part of the fight ahead as folks that refuse to spiral into chaos and as folks that embrace the tenets of a beloved community, part of the work that we have to do is also hold these social media companies, hold these organizations to what they say on paper they're all about.
You know, I just want to add, because I know that Gina's going to come into the conversation in just a moment. You know, when Donald Trump first became president of the United States, the second time, there was an attack on the legal community that would have historically stood up and fought for Don Lemon, for a Miss Armstrong, because on the face of the matter, it's wrong. The prosecutions of Letitia James, the prosecution of the prosecutors, the care in which Jack Smith had to prepare and present his testimony to avoid, to the extent that he may avoid, the kind of contempt from Congress that others have received. This is what we see. This is what we discuss. But these individuals are hiring lawyers who literally, to prove their innocence, can bankrupt the alleged criminal defendant. I can't begin to tell you just how much this costs to preserve your name, to preserve the dignity of your work, to not become a meme, to not become part of a culture when we need people to speak truth to power. We need people to be taken seriously. We need to convey serious messages. But then when we find ourselves having to mortgage our homes to pay for lawyers, to lose everything that we've ever gained just to stay free, just to maintain the integrity of who we are, this is the era that we are clearly entering. And I wanted to allow Gina the opportunity to come just before we come forward in 2 minutes to share some of her initial thoughts.
Well, you started out listing off a number of things, a number of news stories, but in particular, it is our withdrawal from the world stage, our participation in a beloved community around the world. And this really follows leadership, because there's a leadership that took us to these organizations, and there is a participation that we've had foundationally. We have been the financial backbone of many of, particularly the WHO. The World Health Organization is of particular interest as we begin this isolation, or what appears to be an isolation period. But certainly this is not what Martin Luther King envisioned or thought about us. So domestically, we have a number of things going on that then have tentacles that reach out around the world. And we tend to look at things in an isolated fashion, but all of these things add up together. And I think, one of the reasons why we have to study Dr. King is because we are losing a place in our history and an ideology that we have to fight for.
When I saw some of the memes of Dr. King during the holiday period and leading up to the holiday period, with him dancing and clowning and with people taking pictures of him who were not there at certain periods of his history, and even for the King family to respond to say, leave my father, Bernice said, out of the memes, out of the jokes. And the idea of protecting one's legacy in this context is obviously something that we're going to have to talk about. We may even be leading to a generation of people who start saying it's time to get unplugged. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr., listening to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. Our very special guest in this hour is Dr. Q. Niquartalai-Corte is our very special guest. He's the White House correspondent for KBLA Talk 1580. Our very special contributor, Gina Towns, will come forward with us as well on KBLA Talk 1580 in just a moment.
It's afternoon drive time with Jesse Jackson Jr. Only on KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Amber Payton with BIN News Now. Black Texas Congressman Wesley Hunt is facing criticism from GOP leaders for missing dozens of House votes.
Sir, why haven't you been at votes?
Y'all be safe. Speaker Mike Johnson expressed frustration after Hunt skipped a key ICE funding vote while campaigning for Senate in Texas, where he's currently trailing in the race. Los Angeles Black Mayor Karen Bass will deliver 2 State of the City speeches this year. The first one, February 2nd, will highlight preparations for the 2026 World Cup at Inglewood SoFi Stadium. A second, more traditional address is planned for mid-April and will focus on the city budget. And R&B singer Summer Walker is heading back on tour. The Grammy-nominated artist announced her Still Finally Over It trilogy tour, celebrating her last 3 albums. The tour kicks off in Toronto in May and wraps up in London in August. Tickets go on sale to the public January 29th. Get BIN News Now on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
Got issues with youth or high school sports? Positive Coaching Alliance can help. PCA, a national nonprofit, offers more than 1,000 free online resources for youth and high school sports coaches, parents, students, and administrators. Visit PCADevZone.org.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
The Lakers and Clippers generated a playoff atmosphere last night for a sellout crowd at the Intuit Dome in Inglewood. After blowing a 22-point lead in the third quarter and a 14-point lead in the fourth, the Clippers kept their composure and held on for a 112-104 win. The Clippers are 14-3 since December 20th, the best record in the NBA during this 4-week stretch. After a 6-21 start, the Clippers are now 20-24, a game ahead of Memphis for the 10th and final playoff spot in the Western Conference. Kawhi Leonard, who missed the previous 3 games with a sore left knee, led the Clippers with 24 points. Luka Doncic had a game-high 32. LeBron finished with 23 points and 6 assists. This run the Clippers are on is something special. Last night's outcome made it official. There are now 2 NBA teams in LA to get excited about this season. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
KBLA Talk 1580. Talk radio. That's music to your ears. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580.
Let the dogs out!
Tired of the same old sports talk? Ready to go where the real conversation happens? Hi, I'm Ray Richardson, host of Out of Bounds, the sports show that doesn't play it safe. Every Friday at 6 p.m. on KBLA Talk 1580, my co-host Neil Scarborough and I get you ready for the weekend. We take you beyond the highlight reels and into the stories that matter. The controversial calls, the game-changing plays, the athletes making headlines for all the right reasons and sometimes the wrong ones. From the NFL to the NBA, college ball to the pros, if it's happening in sports, we're breaking it down with no filter and all opinion. Tune in to Out of Bounds with me, Ray Richardson, and my co-host Neil Scarborough, live every Friday at 6 p.m. only on KBLA Talk 1580, because the best conversations happen out of bounds. KBLA Talk 1580, where Los Angeles talks.
Hi, I'm Tavish Smiley. You may have heard me talk about the new course I'm teaching, The Art of Conversation. Well, it's here, and I'm holding a live free preview session on January 26th at 6 p.m. Pacific. Here's why this matters. For almost 40 years, I've made my living having conversations that count. Presidents, activists, artists, people who've changed the world. And I've learned something in the process. Most folk have no idea how to ask a real question, how to listen, how to create a moment. Whether you're building a business, leading a team, hosting a podcast, or just want to connect better, this changes how you show up. It's free, it's live, and I might have a surprise guest joining us. Here's what you do. Go to TavishTalks.com. That's TavishTalks.com. Scan the QR code, click the registration link, and you're in. It's January 26th, 6 p.m. Pacific. I'm keeping this intimate. Don't miss it. I'll see you in class.
They call it progress, but progress has a price. Land once held in black hands, taken, stolen, erased. Acres paved into highways, fields burned. Homes replaced by parking lots and broken promises. Every deed lost was a dream deferred. We talk about millionaires, but what about the millionaires that never were? The farmers whose soil was seized, the families who watched their inheritance disappear, the wealth that never had a chance to grow because its roots were ripped from the ground. They took the land, but never the legacy, because the soil remembers, and so do we. Every story matters. Our mission is to collect, preserve, and amplify these stories. If this is part of your family's history, visit blacklandlost.org/share your story and help bring us closer to justice.
You're listening to Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
The Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. 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 King Polly drops the beat. Come on and talk with me. Come on and listen to me. Come on and talk with me. Come on and listen to me. KBLA Talk 1580. Download the app.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. This is Fat Meat Fridays and the J Lunch Club with our regular contributor on Fridays, the creator of the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show, Gina Towns. Gina, welcome forward to the show.
Hi, Jesse.
And our very special guest in this hour is NICU, Dr. Ortalai Quarte, who is our White House correspondent at KBLA. Dr. Q, let me ask you a question just before Gina shares with us our happenings in Black history on this particular date. Trump's peace board at Davos, at the Davos Economic Summit, looks like a real estate deal. I've always believed in a two-state solution in the Gaza Strip. But when you see the images, and I challenge our listeners to Google the peace board and to Google New Gaza, Google New Gaza, and see the renderings of New Gaza. And I'm wondering in this moment, Dr. Q, how are the poor people of Gaza going to be able to afford to live in this arrangement? Why are they not part of the so-called peace board? Dr. Q?
I think those are questions that need answers, and I think it's pretty apparent. There's a book that I require that my students at Pepperdine University read over the course of the semester. It's called Design Justice. And one of the principles that the author writes about at length in that book is nothing for us without us. Nothing for us without us. And this is an organizing principle that some of the most seasoned organizers have adhered to. There doesn't seem to be much evidence of that. It is deeply troubling that this plan to rebuild Gaza, this plan to erect the Middle East Riviera, that it doesn't seem to have any Palestinians that are playing a principal role in this, that have a principal voice in this. Yes, we're seeing folks from the Arab world that are a part of this, but these are folks that are doing their own bidding. And so this is something that I think people of conscience are going to have to watch very, very closely. This is going to require courage, people to speak truth to power. And, as not just Democrats, but anybody that's in opposition to this, as they get out on the campaign trail, it's important to remind people about the power of our example. Yes, we need to bring prices down here at home, but we can't underestimate the power of America's example abroad for good and for evil. For good, and for the good of the narrow self-interest of a privileged few.
I'm thinking in this moment when Dr. King says that it's a time to break the silence, that a betrayal of silence is taking place, as the renderings are obviously of a futuristic Gaza Strip that mirrors flying into Manhattan, in fact, a more modern Manhattan, or flying into Dubai. But it simply does not reflect the education level, the oppression that the Palestinian people have confronted for decades. And it seems to me that they have no role in the future of Jared Kushner's conceptual designs for what can only be seen as a multi-trillion-dollar development, a Riviera in the Gaza Strip. Gina, your thoughts?
I think the whole thing is just very bothersome in general with the Gaza Strip, because I had one of those old Bibles as a child where Israel, what is now known as Israel, was Palestine. And that name was changed. And those people were moved, pushed down into the Gaza Strip. And so now, after a couple of years of unmitigated bombing, death, and destruction, it's time to rebuild. And I saw some early sketch drawings of what it could be, might be. I mean, I think we all knew from the time that Jared Kushner went that there was a deal afoot, and certainly it does not include the people who have been occupying that land. But the fact is that those people were occupying another land even before we got to this point.
Dr. Q, I can't help but reflect in this moment that that the 67,000 people in this conflict are going to be a people without a home, that they are going to be potentially refugees in their own land. And somewhere I read that justice delayed is justice denied, that somehow peace is not merely the absence of noise, but the presence of love and the presence of justice. These are also sustaining principles that we believe in organizing, because the end that we seek is pre-existent in the means, meaning we give some thought to the end that we want to accomplish towards this idea of a beloved community. I don't see that taking place here.
I don't see it taking place in the near term. It is worth noting that 4 Palestinians have been killed in Gaza as Trump has launched this board of peace. It sounds like, America is committed to living in an alternative universe. Al Jazeera reporting that a number of medical sources are saying that at least 4 people have been killed, and the Palestinian Civil Defense, they've reported that on the death of an infant from hypothermia in central Gaza, while President Trump has unveiled his board of peace. They're not experiencing peace there. And I think it's important that people really understand this, that, to create this illusion that we're creating this body that is committed to ushering in an era of peace in the region when there is no peace on the ground right there. We're not dealing in reality, and so at some point we're going to have to reconcile that because I don't see the kind of long-term security in the region if we don't reconcile that. To think that the young people that are coming up right now that are exposed to all of this, the young people that are coming up that are living in poverty right now, the young people that will be forced to live a life as refugees, young people who may never go back to the only place that they've known as their home, to think that people just pack up and move and don't have a word to say about it, don't have a feeling about it, don't have a trauma experience related to it. That is divorced from reality. And we better get this reality check sooner than later so as to give the region a chance to have the kind of security that we all hope that it would have, to have the kind of peace that Trump is trying to create this illusion of at the moment.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr., listening to Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. This is Fat Meat Fridays with Gina Towns, our regular contributor, and our very special guest in this hour is none other than our White House correspondent, Dr. Quartali Corte. More when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
While you're stuck in traffic, we can at least bring you up to speed on the news of the day. You're listening to Jesse Jackson Jr. only on KBLA Talk 1580.
We ask seniors how to prevent Medicare scams.
My best advice, if you get a phone call, do not talk to the person. These people are well trained. Don't talk to them.
They don't know me. They're just trying to scam me.
Don't be fooled. Hang up. Just hang up.
Never give out your Medicare number.
They're going to get your number to put in a false claim.
If I get a call from someone, I don't pick up the phone. And should I pick up the phone and they ask for information, then I hang up.
How do you detect Medicare fraud?
Just like I check my credit card statements, I check my Medicare statements monthly.
Scammers can get a hold of your number, order medical devices through your account, and you're not even going to know about it if you don't look at your statement.
Check your statement every month.
If you get your statement and you see something that you know you did not have done, you report it.
Call your Senior Medicare Patrol.
To report Medicare fraud, call the Senior Medicare Patrol at 855-613-7080.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with services and solutions. The Autopsy Initiative provides a second autopsy free of charge for victims' families who have lost their loved ones due to a police-related death. The services offered through the initiative include the completion of a second autopsy, disclosure of preliminary findings, and a final autopsy report. A police-related death is when an individual is harmed by police officers using deadly force, which results in an individual's death. Police-related death includes in-custody deaths, including those that arise during contact with law enforcement officers during arrest, pursuit, booking, transport, or incarceration. The Autopsy Initiative has a team of board-certified pathologists on call. An autopsy request may be completed by anyone with a close relationship with the victim, which may include the victim's spouse, partner, relative, close friend, or lawyer. To request a free second autopsy for a victim of police violence, please visit knowyourrightscamp.com. That's knowyourrightscamp.com. Then click on autopsy, then click on request. At KBLA, we believe in justice for victims of police violence. We say their names and we don't black down. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580 is committed to self-care and community well-being. Walk Good LA was formed in June 2020, inspired by the Black Lives Matter movement and the beginning stages of the COVID-19 pandemic. What began as a few minutes of breath work and yoga meditation before protests against police brutality turned into a safe space for the community to heal in hard times. The immensely positive response from the community transformed the momentum into a movement. Today, Walk Good LA is a Black and Brown-led community wellness organization based in Los Angeles. They provide spaces for healing through community yoga classes, guided meditations, hikes, run clubs, and other activations throughout Los Angeles that attract hundreds of members weekly. With the help of Propel and Michael B. Jordan, they now have a yoga and wellness studio in Los Angeles called the Walk Good Yard. To join their mailing list and connect with healing spaces, please visit walkgoodla.org. That's walkgoodla.org. Or find them on Instagram at walkgoodla. This is a community call to action, a community call to healing from KBLA Talk 1580.
It's never too early to start talking about money in realistic ways with your kids. JP Morgan Chase navigates how to educate your kids now about creating long-lasting, healthy money habits. Whether your kids are in elementary school, high school, or college, now is a great time to start a conversation about ways to create healthy money habits as they grow, ultimately benefiting their financial future. Talking about money in a realistic way to support your kids' lifestyle and dreams, your first banking account geared towards high school or college. It's never too early. Explaining the basics, what you earn and what you spend, building financial confidence starts with getting organized. Learning and practicing vital money skills now will stay with them for life. Tools they will have to stay on top of their finances and achieve their goals. This segment is sponsored by JP Morgan Chase.
Now back to more of Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
The Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. 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 King Volley drops the beat. Come on and talk with me. Come on and listen to me. Come on and talk with me. Come on and listen to me. KBLA Talk 1580. Download the app.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580. And I want to welcome our regular contributor on Fat Meat Fridays, Miss Gina Towns, the creator of the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. Gina, welcome forward.
Hey, Jesse. Hey, Nee.
Hey, Dr.
Gina
Orte, our White House correspondent, is also joining us. In our final segment, I'd like, if you don't mind, Dr. Q, for you to transition and pivot the conversation to, we've seen chaos in the world, but we're also seeing chaos domestically. Nothing quite like what's taking place in Minneapolis, Minnesota, have I ever seen in my 60 years. What are you hearing from Capitol Hill to the White House on the nature of the chaos and what it could mean for the midterms?
Well, just yesterday, I had a chance to be in conversation with Bishop Joseph W. Tolton. He is the founder of Interconnected Justice. He's also a former senior advisor for religious and global affairs at the U.S. State Department. And his body of work has really focused on the rise of white Christian nationalism. And so part of what we are seeing on the ground in places like Minneapolis, are folks peddling in that white nationalism, white Christian nationalism. I think, the focal point of the DOJ arrest of Nakima Levy Armstrong, civil rights attorney and activist who showed up at a church in Minneapolis where the pastor is alleged to be doubling as acting director of ICE in the area. And I think it raises some really significant questions in terms of the conflict of interest. There are people that go to the church seeking refuge. It's not unusual for churches to be thought of as sanctuaries for folks who are down on their luck, for folks that are in need of support and services. And so the fact that this alleged connection between this acting ICE director and his role as the pastor of this church, it is heavily problematic. And this is just the story that we have learned about. It makes you wonder how many other churches across America have pastors or assistant pastors, deacons, deaconesses that are somehow tied into the ICE apparatus. You might remember, due to the passage of the so-called Big Beautiful Bill, ICE has more funding now than they have ever had in their history. And so they have so much money to throw at not just official ICE agents, but folks willing to cooperate with ICE. And that is deeply troubling. And so that's what I'm hearing the most about from folks in DC and in places like Minneapolis and out in the field and places across the country.
Gina?
Sure, they defunded SNAP and defunded healthcare for Americans who need it in order to build this budget. And so this is what we have now. And I want to go back to what you said, because I saw Don when he landed in Minneapolis, and there was a guy who spoke to him there. And the guy said, "I'm so glad you're here." And basically said, be careful. And Don was like, "Well, what's that about?" And he says, "Well, things are really not what people don't understand what's going on here. It's not like maybe it was in Los Angeles or DC or even Chicago, for that matter. This is really a lot, and people are scared." So, I was just, as you guys were talking, this militarization and focus on materialism is certainly something that Dr. King prophetically talked about. And every so often there's a rise in this. It's almost like we have to go back, every 60 years, every 100 years, and, fight this battle all over again. And I don't know that it will ever stop. What do you think, Nee?
Look, I think it is a righteous fight. It is a fight that we have been fighting for centuries in this country, biblically speaking, even longer than that. It is a righteous fight. But speaking of righteous fight, I just want to connect the dots for a second, because there's a whole conversation happening around qualified immunity. And you might remember that the president and vice president have said, and then they didn't say, and then they said that they supported full immunity for ICE officers. Well, I just want to remind our audience of leaders, learners, and listeners that back in 2020, when folks had taken to the streets in places like Minneapolis and Los Angeles and Chicago and DC and New York and so many places across the country, calling for justice, calling for the passage of the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act, I just want to remind folks that one of the major components of that bill was reforming qualified immunity for officers. There are some that wanted to get rid of it altogether. There are some that wanted to lower the threshold by which it could apply. But imagine if we had gotten that done in 2020. Imagine what tools local law enforcement and other agencies would have to work with to rein in these ICE officers off the rails. And so this is just a reminder that there's sometimes there's legislation out there, and you know this better than most, Jesse Jackson Jr., as a former member of Congress and soon to be member of Congress again. You know this better than anybody else, that there are folks that somehow get in their head that there are pieces of legislation that narrowly only benefit Black people, and seem to forget the history that we've had in this country of fighting for legislation that not just moves our people forward, closer to liberation, but moves America forward. And so as America celebrates its 250th anniversary, commemorates it, we need to do a look back and a look forward. We need to learn from what we didn't get done in 2020 and how it's playing out in the now, so that we can stop it from happening ever again.
Now, that's a word of hope, if I ever heard one. That doesn't get much clearer than what Dr. Q said. 1964 Civil Rights Act didn't just benefit Black people. It also led to the Americans with Disability Act. It also led to the civil right to marriage for two persons who are in love and care deeply and profoundly for each other. It led to access for the disabled to get into buildings and to build ramps and to build sidewalks that allow people to traverse and take advantage of their basic civil and human rights. It's given rights to veterans and to even white men. It was illegal to be a police officer in Alabama and Mississippi, and certainly a state trooper, if you weren't at least 6'2". So even short white men were discriminated against without the Civil Rights Act of 1964. And when you think about this question of qualified immunity, Dr. Q, you hit it spot on the head. They shot that woman in her face, and they also now have warrantless searches of people's homes, meaning they can kick in the door not only of Black and brown people, but they can kick in the doors of white folks. Dr.
It's
Q,
un-American. It's un-American, and we need to call it out before our nation succumbs to this perversion of our Constitution.
Our very special guest has been Dr. Nee Quarterly-Corte, and you're listening to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show and Fat Meat Fridays with Gina Towns. More when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580. Thank you, Dr. Q.
KBLA.
I'm Amber Payton with BIN News Now. Black Texas Congressman Wesley Hunt is facing criticism from GOP leaders for missing dozens of House votes.
Sir, why haven't you been at votes? Y'all be safe.
Speaker Mike Johnson expressed frustration after Hunt skipped a key ICE funding vote while campaigning for Senate in Texas, where he's currently trailing in the race. Los Angeles Black Mayor Karen Bass will deliver 2 State of the City speeches this year. The first one, February 2nd, will highlight preparations for the 2026 World Cup at Inglewood SoFi Stadium. A second, more traditional address is planned for mid-April and will focus on the city budget. And R&B singer Summer Walker is heading back on tour. The Grammy-nominated artist announced her Still Finally Over It trilogy tour, celebrating her last 3 albums. The tour kicks off in Toronto in May and wraps up in London in August. Tickets go on sale to the public January 29th. Get BIN News Now on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
Got issues with youth or high school sports? Positive Coaching Alliance can help. PCA, a national nonprofit, offers more than 1,000 free online resources for youth and high school sports coaches, parents, students, and administrators. Visit PCADevZone.org.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
The Lakers and Clippers generated a playoff atmosphere last night for a sellout crowd at the Intuit Dome in Inglewood. After blowing a 22-point lead in the third quarter and a 14-point lead in the fourth, the Clippers kept their composure and held on for a 112-104 win. The Clippers are 14-3 since December 20th, the best record in the NBA during this 4-week stretch. After a 6-21 start, the Clippers are now 20-24, a game ahead of Memphis for the 10th and final playoff spot in the Western Conference. Kawhi Leonard, who missed the previous 3 games with a sore left knee, led the Clippers with 24 points. Luka Doncic had a game-high 32. LeBron finished with 23 points and 6 assists. This run the Clippers are on is something special. Last night's outcome made it official. There are now 2 NBA teams in LA to get excited about this season. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
Hi, I'm Tavis Smiley. You may have heard me talk about the new course I'm teaching, The Art of Conversation. Well, it's here, and I'm holding a live free preview session on January 26th at 6 p.m. Pacific. Here's why this matters. For almost 40 years, I've made my living having conversations that count. Presidents, activists, artists, people who've changed the world. And I've learned something in the process. Most folk have no idea how to ask a real question, how to listen, how to create a moment. Whether you're building a business, leading a team, hosting a podcast, or just want to connect better, this changes how you show up. It's free, it's live, and I might have a surprise guest joining us. Here's what you do. Go to TavisTalks.com. That's TavisTalks.com. Scan the QR code, click the registration link, and you're in. It's January 26th, 6 p.m. Pacific. I'm keeping this intimate. Don't miss it. I'll see you in class.
The Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. Oh, 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 the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. Oh, 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 the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. Oh, 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 the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. Oh, 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 come on and talk with me. Come on and listen to me. Come on and talk with me. Come on and listen to me. KBLA, Talk 1580, download the app.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580, and welcome to Fat Meat Fridays and the J Lunch Club. Our very special guest, along with our regular contributor Gina Towns, is Dr. Ted Williams III, an educator, actor, author who teaches political science at the City Colleges of Chicago. He's a graduate of the University of Chicago, Rutgers University, and Northern Seminary. His acting credits include NBC's Chicago PD, Showtime's The Chi, various films, plays, and commercials for companies including Empire Carpet, Cheerios, and Subway. Williams is the former host of WYCC PBS Television's The Professors, author of the book The Way Out, Christianity, Politics, and the Future of the African American Community, and creator of the musical theater production 1619, The Journey of a People. For the Chicago City Council, he currently serves on the Illinois Reparations Commission. He and his wife, Rosalind, have 3 children. Dr. Ted Williams, welcome forward on Fat Meat Fridays to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show, and with our creator, Gina Towns.
Hi, Ted.
I think Ted's has to be unmuted.
I'm so sorry. It is so good to be with you guys again for the second time this week. I apologize. Trying to get things together here, but it's good to see y'all again this week. And happy MLK week / year.
Ted, thank you so much for contributing with us most recently Monday, walking in Illinois, where we were invited as the keynote speaker of their annual Martin Luther King Jr. commemorative event. More than 650 people were present, and at the conclusion of the program, Dr. Williams joined me here live on the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. We went upstairs, found us some good Wi-Fi, and were able to call into the show. Dr. Williams, before we get to a number of contemporary issues that are confronting the country in this first segment, share with us your thoughts about the legacy of Martin Luther King Jr. on January 15th, 2026.
Dr. King is probably the most significant American with respect to the issue of freedom and equality and justice for all people. Without Dr. King, the promises of America are really not true for all people. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal and are endowed by their creators with certain inalienable rights, among these life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. If Dr. King does not live and does not do the work he does, along with myriad other significant civil rights leaders, including your father, we recognize that America is not America, as Langston Hughes so eloquently said. And so Dr. King and the civil rights struggle, the country ought to be thanking us and the leaders of this and Dr. King and people that worked with him for that, because it has truly made America live up to what it said on paper. And I can tell you that immigrants who come from across the world see what happened for our people in the 60s and the 50s. and they have hope for America. And without that, I will tell you, it'd be a much different place. And if we cannot extend this promise to all people, then the country has no real future. And
You know, when I think, Ted, you know, when I think, and I didn't mean to cut you off, that was an accident, I promise you. But when I think about, you know, with hindsight, the fact that we rely upon the legacy of Martin Luther King Jr. in just about every single protest within the context of our democracy, even to this day, that had, to your point, not existed, and we think about the leaders that did exist during the period, from Malcolm to Stokely to other students who were rising up, their frame of reference for us in 2026 would not be the same frame of reference if King simply had never existed. To your point, his contribution just that extraordinary.
Absolutely, my brother. You know, right before I came on with you all, I was watching a documentary on Colin Kaepernick and the story of his protest just now 10 years ago. He first took that knee in that 2016 football season. And to watch the reaction to his efforts and other NFL players' efforts to bring light to the issue of social justice and police brutality, it reminds me of what Dr. King lived for, what he fought for, and what he ultimately died for. And I think the greatest thing that we can do in recognizing his legacy, my brother, and I know you know this very well, is to live it today. We still have such a long way to go when we have people who, as I watch this brother get treated as if he was not an American citizen, and to see the history of sports protests, Mahmoud Abdul Rauf in the NBA, who lost his job and his home for protests, and Muhammad Ali and the way that they treated him, it just illuminates the need for each one of us to continue fighting, because we still have such a long way to go.
Gina, we have about a minute before we come forward.
When we come forward, certainly I want to take a deeper dive into what made Dr. King tick. Because like us, we're studying what he said, how he said it, why he said it, and the time in which he said it. But he studied some people too. And he came to some conclusions that he was able to share with us. And, in that way, history was always flying. It's kind of like when he said in the speech, I wish that I could have lived here. That would have been great in this time period. I could have lived here, but I am happy that I'm right here in this period. And so as we reach back for him, I have some things that I want to take some comparisons on, and we'll come forward and we will get right back to Dr. King.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. More on KBLA Talk 1580 in just a moment.
It's afternoon drive time with Jesse Jackson Jr. Only on KBLA Talk 1580.
Hey, KBLA delegation, you know what's better than laughing? Laughing while celebrating the legends who made us laugh in the first place. KBLA Talk 1580 is proud to present our annual Black History Month luncheon. And this year, we're honoring comedy greats, trailblazers who broke barriers, and funny bones at the same time.
You had to grow up early when we was growing up because your parents were sent to the store to buy. You was too young to buy. I want you to go to the store, get me a fifth of gin and a pack of cigarettes. Mama, I'm two. They ain't gonna let me have that. Here, take this note. You be a little boy walking down the street with liquor and cigarettes, and your neighbors be going, that's a good little boy right there.
We need a little levity right about now. So we're rolling out the red carpet for comedy royalty. D.L. Hughley, Melanie Camacho, Earthquake, Lunel, Dion Cole, Martin Lawrence, and a surprise guest appearance. It's going up Thursday, February 26th in downtown LA at the Grammy Museum. An unforgettable afternoon of stories, celebration, and yes, plenty of laughs. Because let's be real, these legends don't just tell jokes. They have changed the game, opened doors, and made history while making us smile.
You gotta go to child support court. You gotta get there real early in the morning. You see brothers going in the court. You see them come out 3 hours later. I can't pay this. Let me talk to you, baby. Please, let me talk to the witness, Sean. Let me talk to the witness. Brother be working for 3 weeks, get his check is $43.
This year, for the first time ever, we have set aside a limited number of individual tickets for the luncheon. They are going to go fast, and when they're gone, they're gone. So if you want a single ticket, or if your company or organization wants to sponsor a table, move swiftly and get to KBLA1580.com right now. All these comedy giants in one room on one stage at the same time? Stop it. This event is going to sell out quicker than right now and sooner than at once. KBLA Talk 1580's annual Black History Month luncheon, Thursday, February 26th at the Grammy Museum. It's gonna be legendary, just like them.
What's up? What's up? What's up?
You got to laugh the pain away.
Are you drowning in IRS tax debt? Angela was. She called Civic Tax Relief and saved over $80,000. Felicia was having health problems, got behind on her taxes, interest and penalties were adding up. She called Civic Tax Relief and saved over $15,000. Civic Tax Relief is a professional tax negotiation firm that can protect you from the IRS. If you're getting collection letters, call Civic Tax Relief for a free consultation. They will go to work helping you discover all the relief programs you may qualify for free. James owed the IRS $37,000. Civic Tax Relief represented him against the IRS, and by the time everything was completed, he did not owe the IRS anything. If you are in trouble with the IRS, call Civic Tax Relief for your free consultation now. 800-200-2257. 800-200-2257. Get a free consultation and real tax relief. Call 800-200-2257. 800-200-2257.
Now back to more of Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
The Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. 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 King Folly drops the beat. Come on and talk with me. Come on and listen to me. Come on and talk with me. Come on and listen to me. KBLA Talk 1580. Download the app.
Hey, you're listening to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. If you're on the Golden State, the Santa Ana, the Santa Monica, the San Bernardino, the San Diego, the Harbor, the Century, Foothill, as well as the San Gabriel River and Long Beach Freeway, right here on KBLA Talk 1580. This is Fat Meat Fridays with Gina Towns and our very special guest, Dr. Ted Williams III. Gina.
Hi, Jesse.
We here. We are here. Ted, we are here, my brother. It is the end of the week. And Friday. Ted, Gina wanted to go, I think, a little bit deeper into some of the ideas and the motivators from Dr. King Jr. just before the break. She said she wanted to know what made Dr. King tick.
Yeah, so I think a lot about who influenced him. We understand that no one, and that all of us come from somewhere, that we are all influenced by various people. And being a student of Dr. King, as so many of us are, I think about Henry David Thoreau, and I think about his 1848 essay on the duty of civil disobedience. And I think about how in this writes about his actions to refuse paying taxes and to be jailed rather than support a war that would expand slavery into Mexico. And Dr. King being, as a college student, so inspired by seeing the idea that you could take whatever you were engaged in, rather than using the weapons of war, use the weapons of peace and resistance and make statements. And I will flip that back around to what I was saying before the break. I am so inspired when I see those things, that tradition of civil disobedience continuing, thinking about some of the protests that have happened in the NFL and the NBA and other places like that. It inspires me because it shows us that as Dr. King took Thoreau's words and his life and his experience and his example, we today in 2026 can take Dr. King's experience, life, and example and apply that in every place and space that we find ourselves, in academia, in the sports world, in the media, and resist through civil disobedience issues that we find morally reprehensible. Police brutality, inequality, blatant racism, the takeover, the American imperialism to take over foreign governments. And I think that in closing on this, the way that we really live out Dr. King's legacy is that we find places and spaces today to enact our own forms of civil disobedience.
Gina, your thoughts on what made Dr. King tick?
Well, certainly. I have a couple of slides that I want to put up for those who can see, but we'll certainly have a discussion around them. When King came to the March on Washington, I think he really had contemplated the presidency and the evolution of Abraham Lincoln. And he came to cash a check, if you will, on the promise that America had delivered. And so when you think about, he says, in a sense, we've come to our nation's capital to cash a check with the architects of our republic who wrote these magnificent words of the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence. They were signing a promissory note to which every American was to fall heir. And sometimes we forget, when people say, in our community in particular, well, that it wasn't written for us. Well, there was an amendment that was added. And in fact, there were 3 amendments that were added as a result of the evolution and the resolve that President Lincoln had. And so that's what we have to hold on. That's the check that he went to cash to remind us as a people that we are part of this. And so here, been kind of channeling all throughout the month of January what happened on this day in African American history, because it's not just a month for us. In February, it is people who have ascended. In January 20th, we looked at the importance of that date earlier in the week, Ted. That is Barack Obama is inaugurated as president. Kamala Harris is inaugurated as the vice president, and certainly there are a lot of other things. But as we go through all of these, the contribution of Black people and the progress, here we have Daniel Hale Williams here at Providence Hospital in Chicago, 1893, and then Susan Rice in 2009. And that was the reason I said earlier that it seems like about every 60 or 100 years, we have to revisit our freedom. We have to remind ourselves in 2 generations, 3 generations later, that, perhaps this is not the end of our struggle, but we have ancestors that we can reach back to.
When I think about in this moment, Dr. King, Gina, and Ted, I envision a man in a very, very crowded space, and he lifts up his arms with very pointed elbows. And very gingerly, he begins swinging to create some space for himself, some space. While the analogy itself is imperfect, what Dr. King has done in our consciousness is he has created a space for action for us, a space that did not exist, a train of thinking linearly that allows us to fight in every generation in a spirit of love, in a spirit of nonviolence, a way of overcoming whatever the particular evils are. And he referred to himself as maladjusted. He didn't see himself in any other negative term, but maladjusted. There are people who had adjusted to the status quo. They had gotten used to it. They had gotten silent. They were comfortable with the way things were. They didn't want to be an agitator. They didn't want to be a fly in the middle of someone's milk. But Dr. King expanded that space for us. So we know how to react to George Floyd. We know how to react to the kidnapping of Maduro. We know, and we have liberty in the space to condemn what took place to Renee Good in Minneapolis. That space that we function in isn't reactionary, that like the young man who took his rifle to Minnesota determining that he was going to defend property at a very young age and was subsequently set free by the justice system. It seems to me that the space that we operate in is a space that matters to my sense of morality, my sense of Christianity. It is a space that matters to Buddhism. It is a space that matters to Judaism. It is a space that matters to Islam. It is a space that we did not have access to until Dr. King raised his elbows and said, listen, we don't have to be conformist. we can fight the power, but this is how we're going to fight the power, and we're going to do it with our heads high and with a level of profound dignity. Dr. Williams?
Yes, I really, as you're talking about, you're referring to Kyle Rittenhouse, and I'm just thinking about that, because I'll tell you guys this. I was in, actually, here's a funny story. After we spent our time together on Monday, and we did a radio show after your keynote, I stayed in the area for a little while and went to a mall and connected in sort of the suburban, northern suburban Chicago, and was walking through the mall and saw a store where in the front of the window of the store were T-shirts that said, God is good and heaven is great and you should live in principles of godliness and things like that. And then I saw behind that a huge wall-sized American flag. I saw a display of guns and ammo, and I saw a display with Charlie Kirk quotes. And it made me think about how this conflation of white nationalism, this American patriotism identity with theology and the violence that is so represented by the Second Amendment is really what Dr. King was fighting against in the 1950s and 60s. And that strand still exists today. As we were talking about the significant dates from January, the one date I thought about that we did not talk about potentially was January 6th, which might be as significant in this conversation about our rights because of what we still are fighting against and how we have to be vigilant in this space and in this way. And so in so many ways, as you talk about, Dr. King carved out this space for himself, and he made sure that the country understood where we needed to go. After, maybe we'll come back around to this, I've got a few thoughts about the I Have a Dream speech directly and some quotes that I wanted to pull. But I think that for me, it reminded me that we cannot rest. It reminded me that we must stay vigilant. It reminded me of the things that you were talking about and how the work still needs to be done, because we still have a world in which militarism, materialism, and racism reign very heavily.
Mm-hmm.
Gina, I thought your slide with Daniel Hale Williams, the first African American to perform, or first American, maybe the first person in the world to perform open heart surgery right here at Provident Hospital here in the city of Chicago. And then in that intervening space is Martin Luther King Jr., of course. And then, of course, Susan Rice and the opportunities that she and Colin Powell and Condoleezza Rice and Eric Holder and obviously Barack Obama, the space that they could operate in would forever never be seen as a space that wasn't appealing to all. They weren't just, if you will, leaders on our side of town, Gina. They were leaders who emerged in their own rights to global significance because of the roles in which they played and the presidents that they had the opportunity and the people, of course, to serve.
Yeah, that's a great point. And thinking about what Ted was saying, I began to wonder, is this the ongoing fight between good and evil? In our last segment, Niku just said, very plainly, and we've had lots of guests who have called what is going on right now evil. And I went back to the I Have a Dream speech, and for those who cannot see, there is on our screen, if you get a chance to download the podcast, you will see Lincoln at the Lincoln Memorial sitting in his chair and overlooking the mall, and Dr. King giving his I Have a Dream speech. And it's almost prophetic in some ways to see this. And King says that we must forever conduct our struggle on the high plane of dignity and discipline. We must not allow our creative protest to degenerate into physical violence. The marvelous new militancy which has engulfed the Negro community must not lead us to distrust all white people. For many of our white brothers, as evidenced by their presence here today, have come to realize that their destiny is tied up with our destiny. we cannot walk alone. That almost is prophetic in that this is a struggle that will go on until the end of time. I guess the struggle has gone on since the beginning of time, that struggle for a higher plane of dignity and discipline.
And I would agree with you on that, Gina, that battle we must continue to fight. The one that I think exhausted in fighting, as I think many of us are, is the one that deals specifically with the dynamics within this American context, the created and constructed identity of race, right? That did not exist even 400 or 500 years ago in the same way. The understanding in a capitalist system, this hierarchical look at how some ought to be at the top, and it is okay to have the masses at the bottom struggling to find housing and struggling to have health care while we have billionaires and millionaires who get tax breaks consistently. I'm okay with the struggle theologically, as the three of us understand very well, of good and evil. What I am exhausted from is the struggle of race, class, and inequality, and how that manifests itself. And I think that, you know, as I recognize, as even theologically, the Bible teaches us that the poor will always be with us. And so we know we'll never live in a utopia. I'm just at the place in America, I'm like, man, can we get a little less poverty? Can we get a little less racism? Can we get a little less violence in the country? That's where I want to get to.
You know, I'm thinking in this moment that America as conceived and the wealth that we have been able to generate since the inception of the Republic, I'm not so sure that that admonition in the Bible that the poor will be with us always is a reality. It is something that we choose to allow to happen because of our lack of concern for neighbor. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. More on KBLA Talk 1580 when we come forward.
It's afternoon drive time with Jesse Jackson Jr. Only on KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Amber Payton with BIN News Now. NASA marked its annual Day of Remembrance by honoring astronauts who died in the pursuit of space exploration. At a ceremony, Black Kennedy Space Center Deputy Director Kelvin Manning remembered the crews of Apollo 1 and the space shuttles Challenger and Columbia.
May we teach the next generation their names.
Additional ceremonies were held at NASA facilities nationwide. A slavery exhibit in Philadelphia was removed from a historic site after the Trump administration labeled it disparaging. The National Park Service took down the President's House exhibit honoring enslaved people who lived and worked there. And Black civil rights pioneer Claudette Colvin will be laid to rest this week. Colvin, who was arrested in 1955 for refusing to give up her seat on a segregated Montgomery bus, died of natural causes earlier this month at the age of 86. Her actions helped pave the way for the end of bus segregation nationwide. Get BIN News Now on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
Got issues with youth or high school sports? Positive Coaching Alliance can help. PCA, a national nonprofit, offers more than 1,000 free online resources for youth and high school sports coaches, parents, students, and administrators. Visit PCADevZone.org.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
The Lakers and Clippers generated a playoff atmosphere last night for a sellout crowd at the Intuit Dome in Inglewood. After blowing a 22-point lead in the third quarter and a 14-point lead in the fourth, the Clippers kept their composure and held on for a 112-104 win. The Clippers are 14-3 since December 20th, the best record in the NBA during this 4-week stretch. After a 6-21 start, the Clippers are now 20-24, a game ahead of Memphis for the 10th and final playoff spot in the Western Conference. Kawhi Leonard, who missed the previous 3 games with a sore left knee, led the Clippers with 24 points. Luka Doncic had a game-high 32. LeBron finished with 23 points and 6 assists. This run the Clippers are on is something special. Last night's outcome made it official. There are now 2 NBA teams in LA to get excited about this season. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
This is KBLA Talk 1580. Talk radio. That's music to your ears. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580.
Tired of the same old sports talk? Ready to go where the real conversation happens? Hi, I'm Ray Richardson, host of Out of Bounds, the sports show that doesn't play it safe. Every Friday at 6 p.m. on KVLA Talk 1580, my co-host Neil Scarborough and I get you ready for the weekend. We take you beyond the highlight reels and into the stories that matter, the controversial calls, the game-changing plays, the athletes making headlines for all the right reasons and sometimes the wrong ones. From the NFL to the NBA, college ball to the pros, if it's happening in sports, we're breaking it down with no filter and all opinion. Tune in to Out of Bounds with me, Ray Richardson, and my co-host Neil Scarborough, live every Friday at 6 p.m. only on KBLA Talk 1580, because the best conversations happen out of bounds. KBLA Talk 1580, where Los Angeles talks.
We've got a lot to talk about.
I'm Reverend Gerald, the life coach. Is someone you love struggling with addiction and mental illness? Is improving your family's health important? Want to leave a legacy that your family can grow? Are you ready to enhance your perception of life experiences? Then wake up weekends at 7 a.m. with Urban Family Focus and get the wisdom, opportunity, resources, and motivation to live your best life. Join the conversation on Urban Family Focus Saturday and Sunday at 7 a.m.
Unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black.
They call it progress, but progress has a price. Land once held in black hands, taken, stolen, erased. Acres paved into highways, fields burned. Homes replaced by parking lots and broken promises. Every deed lost was a dream deferred. We talk about millionaires, but what about the millionaires that never were? The farmers whose soil was seized, the families who watched their inheritance disappear, the wealth that never had a chance to grow because its roots were ripped from the ground. They took the land, but never the legacy, because the soil remembers, and so do we. Every story matters. Our mission is to collect, preserve, and amplify these stories. If this is part of your family's history, visit blacklandlost.org/share your story and help bring us closer to justice.
You're listening to Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
The Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. 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 King Quality drops the beat. Come on and talk with me. Come on and listen to the me. Come on and talk with me. Come on and listen to the me. KBLA Talk 1580. Download the app.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580. We're closing out our King celebration and commemoration and reflection. We do have some final thoughts. Gina?
Hi, Jesse. Hi, Ted.
Hey.
What I thought when I was doing a little bit of research on this was very interesting to see that passage of the 13th Amendment part in the if you're watching. If you're listening, it says January 1865, Lincoln makes a deliberate plan to ensure passage of the 13th Amendment, a king cure for all the evils. Lincoln viewed the 13th Amendment as God's cure for America's sin with slavery. And then he says, I leave it to you to determine how it shall be done, but remember that I'm the president, clothed with immense power, and I expect you to procure these votes. He felt really strongly about it in a prophetic kind of way. Not that he himself was entrenched in any sort of spirituality. We don't find that about him, but certainly he feels that way about the ill of slavery, the mistreatment of people. And I find that King is pulling from him. And, hence he gives his very last speech at the feet of King in Washington at his statue.
I would also add to this about Lincoln, which I find to be partially problematic, is that the idea of the devil's in the details. So when Lincoln says, "Hey, I will leave this to you to determine how it shall be done," that is more than an ancillary comment. What Lincoln does by passing the 13th Amendment is still leave in this clause that has unfortunately terrorized the African American community since the 13th Amendment was passed, saying that slavery shall not exist except as a punishment for a crime. This was not an unimportant phrase. And we have seen post the passage of the 13th Amendment, we've seen countless institutional efforts, generational efforts, to use mass incarceration as a new form of slavery, as a new form of discrimination, as a new form of isolation. And to this day in 2026, still are wrestling with these questions when African-American males make up about 6% of the population, but make up about 60% of the people who are incarcerated in this country. We recognize very clearly that this was beyond imperfect in this way. And America, we have got to do we've got to have these conversations because we are still in many ways suffering. And I think that I just think it's critical that we do that. As I look at the legacy of Lincoln, when I was younger, I used to look at him as a true hero. I still think that he is heroic in what he accomplished for us, but I also recognize the severe limitations that we're wrestling with still today.
And that's why I believe King says that our forever struggle must be nonviolent. And so it is a perpetual struggle, good versus evil, for the oppressor and the oppressed to fight, and nonviolently in this case.
I see, to both of your point, see that in the era of Lincoln, those Americans would have been deeply troubled, those who are on the abolitionist side of the equation, by Old Testament scripture, the Exodus story, the Moses story, as being essentially fatal to the idea of civilization. And that on the other side of the Moses story is this idea of a promised land, a new Israel, that the architects of our republic were at least trying to get to conceptually and certainly spiritually. I say that to say that Lincoln's challenge is a little different. Unlike any other form of slavery in the history of the world, we are the only people who've had to amend a constitution to get out of it, requiring the people themselves to assent to the idea that chattel slavery would be illegal going forward coming out of the Civil War. Now, does the 13th Amendment ban other forms of slavery, labor or wage slavery, or forms of discrimination that may present themselves in different form that one might consider to be as oppressive as some form of slavery, and slavery in the various forms that it has presented itself after the chattel system itself is destroyed by the 13th Amendment? And so one could argue that we are in some form of healthcare slavery, some form of education slavery, some form of environmental slavery, as long as the system that we live in remains separate and unequal, and without the human right to be out of those systems, the legal right to be out of those systems, we still find ourselves trapped in the existing systems. Let me close on this. The structure of the Constitution under the Bill of Rights, and this, particularly the 10th Amendment, which became, of course, that amendment that the slaveholders themselves wrapped their legal theories around. If the right itself is not in the Constitution, the 10th Amendment says, then it is a right that belongs within the purview of the states. And so, of course, the slaveholders argued, since the word slavery is not in the Constitution, we have a right to do what we want down here in Georgia. We got a right to do what we want over here in Alabama. You can't tell us down here in Texas what we can do with our Negroes, or Tennessee. But once the Constitution is amendment, we now have a constitutional right, a human right, not to be born into a condition of slavery or of chattel servitude. So if that's the framework, states' rights, separate and unequal, and the idea of human right, a human right not to be in slavery, I'm of the opinion that we need more human rights added to the Constitution, and they have to be added in the form of amendments, because on one side of the 13th Amendment, we do know existentially there is a slave system. What we do know on this side of its addition to the Constitution, there's a 14th, 15th Amendment, and we're towards something. I'd like to see us separate health carelessness. Let that be the past. Give everybody a future that is the right to health care. Let the idea that no citizen has the right to vote, it's controlled by the states. Let that be the system of the past. Let's build a superhighway from Maine all the way to California in our democracy, where everyone has a fundamental constitutional right to vote. Let's let inequality for women be the era of the past. Let's advance the Equal Rights Amendment and let the Constitution divide the old era, the slave era, of how we treated women with respect to their rights by empowering them with the constitutional right to an Equal Rights Amendment where everybody's on notice that if you think you can pay a woman or treat a woman differently in the system, she now has a legal right to object. And there are legal, civil, and potentially even criminal consequences for any form of subjugation on those questions. But the paradigm that's essentially set by Lincoln is that human rights are forever enshrined in the Constitution. We, the people, Ted, got to add them. We got to add them to the Constitution.
There you go.
I
mean,
love it. And I think what you're saying is so timely, because we are in the 250th anniversary of the nation. We ought to be having these conversations across the country, Jesse and Gina, to say, this was the past, this was the old. How will we go forward in the new? And what you are talking about, the issues that we're dealing with still 200 years, almost 200 years after this, and 400 years after our folks came to this nation, we're still dealing with these fundamental questions of what it means to be a human being, a citizen, an American. This ought to be a crossroads for this country to say we will not go forward the next 250 years without guaranteeing these rights.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr., listening to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. In just a moment, we'll come forward with our final segment, and of course, from Reverend Dr. Ted Williams, a word of hope. More when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
While you're stuck in traffic, we can at least bring you up to speed on the news of the day. You're listening to Jesse Jackson Jr. only on KBLA Talk 1580. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with services and solutions. LA County's new Justice Care and Opportunities Department, or JCOD, is here to support justice-involved individuals and their families. The JCOD Support Center is now taking calls at 1-833-LACJCOD. That's 1-833-522-5263. Available 7 days a week from 6 a.m. to 11 p.m., the Support Center is your one-stop shop for re-entry issues and court support. They offer court reminders, connections to local services, transportation assistance for housing, court appearances, and childcare. The JCOD hotline provides personalized help to connect you with services that you need. And don't forget to check out justiceconnect.org for more information. Remember, it's free and available every day at 1-833-522-5263. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
My ride smells just right, just right, just right, just right.
Y'all gotta try that Febreze car.
Just right, just right, just right. La 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 la. With up to 40 days of consistency. On low Febreze car clips right on your vent. You know my car's my happy place. Keep that smile on my face. When it smells just right, just right, just right. Yeah, breathe happy Febreze. La 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 la.
Not everything announces itself. Some things simply arrive, and the room is compelled to adjust. This is grooming without apology, without noise, without compromise. Gods and money, organic formulations, clean precision, crafted for skin that does not ask for permission to be felt. Element Cream, a rare hydration layered like an oud at dusk, measured, enduring, unmistakably masculine, moisturizing oil, a quiet revolution, restoring what stress, climate, and time attempts to claim. This is not skincare. It is composure made visible. It is inevitability. Gods and money exist impeccably. Discover the ritual at godsandmoney.com. That's Gods and Money, MONY.com.
Small businesses are the heart of America. But you don't have to go it alone. As the nation's largest nonprofit resource of expert business mentoring, SCORE has helped millions of entrepreneurs build their businesses for free. Get the connections, education, and guidance you need with SCORE. We're ready to help. Find a mentor today at score.org.
Lena Bloom for the Bail Project.
Imagine you're stuck in a jail cell and you can't afford bail, and someone offers you a way out. Just plead guilty and you can go home and kiss your kids goodnight. What do? What thousands have. You plead guilty whether you are or not. Cash bail makes poverty a crime. That's why the Bail Project helps those who can't afford it while fighting to end cash bail, because freedom should be free.
Brought to you by the Ad Council.
As a mom, comforting my family is what I do best. Vicks Vapor Stick provides soothing, non-medicated Vicks vapors in an easy-to-apply stick, and it dries fast, so there's no mess. I use it to comfort myself and my family.
Thanks, Mom.
Vicks Vapo Stick, soothing comfort for the whole family. And try Vicks Vapo Shower Max for steamy Vicks Vapors when you need more comfort for yourself. Use as directed.
Pizza's here.
Oh, great. I'd love some, but I'm worried about my stomach issues.
If you're worried about having diarrhea, gas, bloating, stomach pain, or loose, oily stools, it may not just be stomach issues. It could be a condition called exocrine pancreatic insufficiency, or EPI. With EPI, the pancreas doesn't release enough enzymes to break down food, but EPI is manageable. Use the symptom checker on identifyepi.com and talk to your doctor. That's identifyepi.com. Sponsored by AbbVie.
Now back to more of Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
The Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. 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 King Wally drops the beat. Come on and talk with me. Come on and listen to the me. Come on and talk with me. Come on and listen to me.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show, and this our final segment of Fat Meat Fridays in the J Lunch Club. Gina Towns, our creator, is our regular contributor on Fridays, as well as our very special guest, Dr. Ted Williams III. Ted, Gina, welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
Thank you for having us. It's always good to be here.
Gina had some insights that she wanted to share during the break that I thought she should bring forward now. Gina?
So Ted, and for our listeners, I can't wait till, if you're just listening, I can't wait for you to go and download this podcast so that you can see Abraham Lincoln and Martin Luther King's speeches side by side, the similar rhetoric and the structures that are used in these speeches. But, you know, part of what I was trying to get to was what Jesse talked about before we went to break. And that is from 1863 to 1963, we see Abraham Lincoln where he was in that portion of our history. And then you see King come forward in another era in human history. And so, we're heading toward another space in our own human history where we see some of the same struggles that pop up. But one thing I have to say about this is the whole idea of the amendment process is what Jesse was discussing, that when we got to the 1960s, we enacted acts versus those amendments, whereas Lincoln was as sure could be that the 13th Amendment had to be passed. He knew that if he just did the Emancipation Proclamation, which is an act, that should he perish, that they could do away with the act. And that's what we see unfolding here. We see the unraveling of the Voting Rights Act and the Civil Rights Act of 1964 and 65. And so that we have to rest assured that the generations that we are teaching and pushing forward, they have to go and read this history. They have to read the Emancipation Proclamation, the Amendments 13, 14, and 15. They have to go and read the Voting Rights Act and understand why we can't just pass an act alone, because it is more easily undone. What it takes to pass a constitutional amendment for human rights for everyone, state by state, is an arduous task, but that's the work that is before us.
I think that just to add a little clarity to what Gina was saying or is saying, the Emancipation Proclamation is probably more akin to a executive order. It's not an act of Congress. So by the time you advance the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendment, it is 95 years from the 15th Amendment to the Voting Rights Act of 1965. 95 years to get Congress to act and actually make it real and dwell amongst the people. Even with the 14th Amendment, you end up with a 14th Amendment interpretation in 1896, which basically instructs Congress that their interpretation of the Equal Protection Clause is separate but equal. And of course, a new interpretation in 1954, Brown versus the Board of Education, overturns the Plessy decision because separate but equal is inherently unequal. A new interpretation of the 14th Amendment that is largely responsible for laying the foundation for the Civil Rights Act, which led to the implementation by Congress of other acts, including Americans with disability, including the right to marry, including overcoming that Loving case in Virginia, marry who you want to marry, challenges to the Mann Act. That's what locked up the heavyweight champion of the world at the turn of the century, because he did not have those basic protections. So it seems to me that the pattern is, once we have a constitutional amendment, we have a civil rights movement that can commence immediately, or it can take 95 years to get to a civil rights movement. If you guaranteed every American the right to a public education of equal high quality, what's up next? The civil rights movement to reduce all class sizes across this country to less than 15 students, or individualized instruction. What's up next? The Equal Facilities Act, where if they have a swimming pool over there, everybody gets to train for the Olympics in all public schools everywhere in the country, because that's an Equal Facilities Act, a civil rights act. So if you amend the Constitution guaranteeing all Americans the right to health care of equal high quality, it means that the trauma units aren't on one side of town, while there are no trauma units on this side of town. And it gives people the legal right and the government the structure by which a civil rights can be passed, where we find health deserts. Hospitals can then be constructed at the will of the people. That's pretty much the structure of the system that we live in. Now, as difficult as that sounds, 2/3 of the Congress, 3/4 of the states, to actually get a new human right added to the Constitution. Imagine if we did not have a system in place, the founding, Ted, of the country itself to even amend our way out of our problems. If there were no United States government, there would be no legal process for even ending slavery. Some states by now might have gone on ahead and set up their own country. But because they agreed to union, and yes, we did fight a civil war, there is a way out. And I can't think of, with all of America's problems, Ted, a greater experiment than the one that we are living in. Ted, we have about 2 minutes before the end of the show. You might want to summarize everything for us and even offer in that context a word of hope.
Sure. Thank you. And I appreciate, Gina, your connection with the history, this arc, this desire for years and years, generations and generations to get to this notion of equality. You know, Brother Jesse, as you were talking, I was just thinking about this process, this constitutional amendment process. We've only really done it really 16 times outside of the Bill of Rights. And the last time was in 1991, the 26th Amendment. And I think about, here we are in 2026, looking at, though we have a process to make this happen, why is it so difficult to have change? That's the real question that we must ask ourselves today. And what do we need to be doing? And I think, to your point, it is not a state-by-state question. It is not an individual question, as many people like to simplify and make these issues. It is really a guarantee of rights from the federal perspective, so that we can go forward and have guarantees, not just proclamations, but guarantees in public policy that will last beyond a particular administration or generation. And that is the real question that we must be speaking to. And I pray in our lifetime, going forward, that we will see more amendments to this Constitution. I wish we could not have to go issue by issue, so that we could get these basic guarantees of human rights. I wish we could do it in a larger way, but it looks like history has shown us we may have to do that. And for that, I think there is a word of hope in that, my brother and sister, because
KBLA 15.
Those who fought in the past have done it. We can do it again.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr., listening to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. Our very special guest has been Reverend Dr. Ted Williams III. So grateful for his participation. And Gina, as always, thank you for creating the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
Well, thank you for all you have to offer and the reason why you need to win.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. More on KBLA Talk 1580 when we come forward.